Why don't we get started? Persons present are Graham Ball, Harriet Applegate, Jonathan Ciesla, Brad Kluge, Keith Yellen, Drew Herzig, Linda Striyevsky so far, and Lee is with us, but he just went to get a copy of something. We have minutes of April 20 for approval.
I'll motion to approve.
Any second?
Second. Oh, did you? She said.
No, she didn't say anything.
Any discussion?
I thought Lee did a very nice job.
He always does a really nice job.
Yeah.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, thank you.
This way when he watches the video.
You'll get a little positive reinforcement. All right, so, any changes to the agenda?
Can we add on that discussion to interview a new council person?
Sure.
I don't know if that's new business.
Jim Potter, right?
The mayor popped in and made the suggestion to us. So
Oh, okay, all right.
if it feels out of the blue, it was.
Okay.
And then you just were the only one on the room.
What are you talking about?
Okay, so we'll add that to the agenda.
Yeah, I think it is at the
Let's
end of
bring
new
it along,
business.
we'll do it in new business.
Yeah, like item D.
Also, I'd like at some point to revisit the disqualification things we talked about, felonies and that sort of stuff. I don't know if that's coming up tonight.
It will, yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, it'll be part of Craig's report.
All right.
Okay, we have nobody here from the public, so on to old business. We'll wait for Roland. I don't think he's heard back from Judith Miles. We were trying to get him in touch with her, but I don't think that's happened yet. We're down to D. Harriet and Drew, do you have anything you want to report?
We've got the latest revised thing. We'll send it around to the commission if that's okay. And then we can put it on the agenda for Saturday.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah, you saw that I put in 2 changes.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
Just for my understanding, is it, we still need to approve the charter language? And then, cause
Oh,
we're
yeah.
just gonna, cause the ordinance is just a nice idea, right? We don't actually have to.
Yeah, but we do have ordinance language as well.
Yeah, and I wrote like as a strategy, but we need to just, we need to approve the charter language.
For
though.
sure, definitely. And I'm not sure, Linda, how you want to package it. If we need to approve the ordinance language to send to the council as part of the report or what, but we can discuss that on Saturday.
Yeah, we'll discuss it Saturday.
Okay, just wanna get my hat around.
Yeah,
So thank you.
I would think anything we give to council, we have to, discuss and agree on, but we'll discuss it further on Saturday.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Okay, so revised text from Guy on finance and budget. So this was simply to look at the edits. There were just a few tweaks that were made to the draft at our last meeting,
What section is that?
9, section 9,
9.1 and 9.2.
9.1, 9.2, I believe that's it. Then
Article 9, you're saying Article 9?
Article 9, sorry, Article 9. And I think from 3 on, it's all what has been there. Or, it's changed with the 2017, 2019,
Okay.
so here comes Roland.
Alright, did we just? Okay.
Okay.
Hi, Roland.
There, so, Roland.
Hello.
So, I don't know if this probably isn't isolating the latest changes, is it?
So it doesn't reflect really the changes we talked about last week.
It reflects the changes.
It does, but it may not isolate them, but we only
Well,
made
I
a
know the
few.
word, section 9.2, is it 9.2 there? 9.1? Anyway, it's not an annual tax budget, that heading didn't work, right? Let me find my,
It is not good.
let me find my own.
Oh, here, you mind if I put it up? There you go.
So we're at 9.
Would it be helpful on here if we just saw the new language with the track changes? I can just say, this is everything that you wanted to say?
Well, I think.
Yeah. Something like that.
So in 9.2, because that paragraph describes not only the tax budget, but the annual full budget, we wanna take the word and the tax out of the header,
Out of the header?
yeah. No, the annual is fine. The word tax is not fine.
Oh,
Tax refers to property tax, it's only part of what we're doing budgeting. And I don't have my notes from last week, but
Let me look at my copy of the your stuff. That's where I would have noted any. Just gonna find the right folder. This folder,
Ron,
let's see. Let's see, we had a question about itemized and we decided we had to keep the language about itemized.
should, in this sentence where it says the mayor must provide a council estimated annual tax budget, it should just be annual budget, or is it okay to say tax here?
this stuff stand up, hold on. Let's see. No, the annual tax budget there is correct.
Okay.
Alright.
We talked about the
I made all of these changes with the minute. Go ahead.
we decided,
The-
go ahead.
The next to last line, the mayor must provide to an, something's missing or something needs to be taken out.
Just the two,
Council.
two should be taken out
Yes.
of it. But this doesn't okay, so
Shouldn't it say to council, Ann?
That's what I was asking.
To council.
to council, okay. Okay, I wanna suggest a treatment of what we're doing. If this doesn't incorporate all of these changes, which it doesn't appear to incorporate these changes because revise was removed, was replaced with update, various other things. There must have been 20 or 30 of those changes, and I would prefer just to say, we have to put this on Saturday's agenda, then I'll get that information to Lee and he can incorporate it into the standard.
Well, I think I forgot to change the heading, but I think I otherwise made the edits to this. I could be
Well-
wrong, if you wanna go back and check it, that's certainly fine. I can give you a different draft to look at that shows the changes I made.
Can you go back where you were?
Yeah.
So, so I believe that Lee suggested the city must revise its budget, the idea of revise is replaced with update, or something of that, so it doesn't reflect, I don't believe it reflects all of these changes.
Okay, but why don't I send you the markup that I did and you can check it and see where I missed anything.
What I had done, and that's fine, and then if you don't mind, I'll confirm the merge and I'll give it to Lee, and that's what we
Yeah.
can say is the last thing, okay? That would be great. I appreciate that.
Okay, I will do that.
So we'll bring this back on Saturday.
Yeah, we'll come back to this Saturday. I don't have too much space here. Okay. So we are now on the land acknowledgement. How do we wanna approach this? Does anybody have anything new they wanna say about this, or how do you wanna proceed?
Do we wanna get the text up?
Where is it? Is it in here?
No, it's not.
No, it's not in the draft.
Okay.
Should be in the Dropbox, but
Do you have,
Dropbox is open.
okay, and where is it?
it should be in working files.
Updated?
17, as of 4/26.
Yeah.
Scroll up.
Oh, look at all that scrolling.
Yeah, I found those files the other day.
The earliest one is 4/26 at 1:30 p.m.
426 should be it.
Okay. The Word file I'll do.
Yeah.
Can you make that bigger?
Maybe. No, that'll work.
I found my draft. This is
Okay, I'll just refer to that then, okay? That'll be easy.
Just get it back to me next time, okay?
I will definitely.
But I'll also send you the
I'm gonna put your initials on it, so I know that it's an absolute.
Oh, there we go. That's what. Okay.
I forgot to take my Dramamine.
I believe that is it. I don't know if.
That's our most recent version. So last time there was some question about looking at precedent. We were looking at other cities that have the land acknowledgement in their charter. Guy very helpfully looked through a number of major cities which found it absent.
May I just have 2 words?
Of course.
So let's all just recognize that when one designs a study, they're actually designing a large portion of the results, right? So in my case, I didn't know to look at any other cities. I mean, if I had a better idea what was more relevant, I would have chosen it. But not knowing anything else, I went to the top 10 cities in the country and I looked at those. I also looked at all the states from Maine down to Kentucky. I didn't want to do 50 states. So I looked at all those states and I searched for acknowledgement and I searched for indigenous, and there was no found reference that was relevant to our discussion. Okay, that's what I can read. So with that, I'll pass it back to you.
Totally, and so like I basically in my research I was just looking more broadly, not at specific states, but I was just kind of Googling around for charters, which led me to the news article about it that I sent to folks. So we do see that there is a land acknowledgement that Portland's Charter Review Commission recommended in 2022, which passed their voters and is now incorporated in their charter. I think if we were to adopt the land acknowledgement, that the formatting that they use is pretty good, which is basically just having the preamble and then right below that a land acknowledgement section. I think that obviously their language is very different and very specific to Portland, as ours is specific to Cleveland Heights. But I think that format of going preamble and then land acknowledgement would make the most sense. I think that the land acknowledgement belongs in the charter, as the charter is a document, a foundational document of the city that is governing the relation of the city to its residents. And I think that the relation of the land the city is on, is intrinsic to the city and intrinsic to its relationship with its residents. And that for that reason, it belongs in the charter. I think that, I also want to say that, like we said last time, that I acknowledge that this is language that we've come up with together, and that people are, if they vote against it, are not doing so because they disagree with the language or the sentiments expressed, but rather that on whether or not it belongs in the charter. I think that it does, but I understand that some folks don't.
I would agree that it belongs in the charter. It's foundational. The charter is foundational. It's the basis on which we do our work, and I think it belongs more in a charter than like anyplace else. It'd be great if the city council were to either do something with an ordinance or, maybe have, organize an Indigenous Peoples' Day or whatever, but I think it actually most properly belongs in the charter. In some ways I can't imagine what kind of ordinance because this is just real sort of foundational, broad-based, acknowledging language, which to me just screams out, this goes in the charter. To me it does, so.
And just in defense of this specific language that we've used here, I think that, in speaking with Cynthia and Sundance about this, they emphasize the need for it to be honest, specific, to be a reckoning, and to be inclusive of the Indigenous people who still live in our community, as well as honoring those who came before. So I think that this land acknowledgement achieves all of those goals, and leaves, is not overly prescriptive on the council. It's not really requiring that they do specific things other than to be engaging with these legacies. But then it leaves the door open for council and hopefully gives them some license to continue to do more on this issue as they see fit.
So my thinking is that we could recommend that council adopt a resolution and establish something like an Indigenous persons event. Could be a day, could be a month, just as they do for other events like Black History Month and Women's History Month and Pride Month. I think that would be appropriate. It would be sort of paralleling what the city has done in similar instances, and that could be an ongoing annual event that would recognize the contributions of Indigenous people and the injustices that have been done to them. But I would prefer to do that rather than put it in the charter.
I'm thinking the language is really well done. It is not inflammatory at all. It starts with gratitude, recognizes the history, but it's not, pointing fingers at anyone. It's just acknowledging that this is, to coin a term, where we've been and where we are now kind of thing. I think it's really well written. I think it belongs in the charter, but I think most importantly, it belongs to the public to have this conversation. The public needs to be able to talk about this, and if we stifle it here, they're losing that opportunity. I really feel that it's up to us to move this forward so that we can have a public conversation, whether it's when the council considers this or if they decide to put it on the ballot, then when the voters decide it. It would be tragic if we blocked it here. And with that thought in mind, I would really ask the commissioners, if you can't vote for it, then abstain, to let it come to the people, to let the people have this conversation. And I think it is so important now, locally, nationally, globally. This has to be talked about. And I would, if we strangle the baby in the cradle, so to speak, it would be really a black mark against us. So if you can't vote for it, please abstain, I would say.
Drew, I would say, I don't think that if we took the step of encouraging council to take some action as I described, that we're stifling discussion or strangling a baby in the cradle. That's rather extreme language.
Well, I'm talking about the land acknowledgement. I'm not talking about your proposal, which is fine. Let's not kind of do apples and oranges. Go right ahead, ask the council to have an Indigenous Peoples' Day kind of a thing. I'm asking the council to put the land acknowledgement in the charter.
And I'm suggesting it could be done in a resolution
Yes.
that would put it in front of the people, that could be discussed at a city council meeting, and that city council could adopt ongoing annual recognition of Indigenous people, which I do not think equates to strangling a baby in a cradle. I just have some problems with the wording.
Okay, I take that back. I apologize. But again, I would really, if people can't vote to move it forward, then don't block it. We can do other things as well. We can put that into a report kind of a thing, but this is I want it to be treated as a standalone issue, not as competing with a resolution in Indigenous Peoples' Day or that sort of thing. Just to treat it as by itself, I'm asking people not to block it.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and I said this on Saturday, I agree with the language, I agree with the sentiment, I just don't feel it belongs in the charter. And I guess I would also argue that we were all chosen here, selected by city council and the mayor to kind of go through what we felt should be included in the charter. If they just wanted a rubber stamp for dumping everything on city council, then city council could have just done this on their own, they didn't have to appoint a charter commission. So I think we're a gateway to determining what we feel should be in the charter, or maybe recommending what we feel city council should pass a resolution or ordinance for, so. I don't think it should belong in the charter.
I apologize, why should it not be in the charter?
City council could pass an ordinance, we don't know legally what the ramifications would be. And as Linda indicated before, this could open the Pandora's box. This could open an argument that a number of other groups should also have their rights and issues acknowledged in the charter as well. So there's an issue of why limiting it to just Indigenous peoples, and if it's something that can be accomplished other means other than the charter. My personal opinion is just that should be the avenue, whether it's an ordinance or resolution or some other avenue.
So Stephanie, my point was that the city already has a nice tradition of having annual events that acknowledge other groups that have suffered injustices, such as Black History Month, Women's History Month, Pride Month, and that it would be appropriate and a very good positive recognition to have something similar for Indigenous people. And that doesn't require a charter amendment. On the other hand, other groups might feel slighted if something is put in the charter for Indigenous people but not for them. And I don't see a reason to have anybody feel like they're being left out or they're being treated differently. I think the way the city has handled other things is a very positive way to approach it.
I'd like to say a couple things. First of all, I think there's some categorical differences between this particular group, Indigenous peoples, and people of color, women, and LGBTQ people, because we have lots of people of color living in our community. We have lots of women living in our community, and we have lots of LGBTQ people living in our community. And they're all very visible, and they're pretty active as advocates of their own category. And that is not the case with Indigenous peoples. I don't know how many of you are aware, but you know, there's a small number. First of all, we committed a lot of separate genocides against these people and wiped out many of them. In fact, you pointed out that for 100 years, there weren't any here because they had all been killed. And so new ones who were being killed on the East Coast moved here. So this is not like other groups of people that have been harmed by the larger society. So if you recall, in the struggles around Chief Wahoo, a very small number of Indigenous people very faithfully were at the stadium game after game and year after year and suffered unbelievable abuse that nobody would ever deliver to a person of color or to a woman or to a gay person. Well, maybe not gay people anymore, but then, you know, since Trump, that set of rules has changed. But they're a small minority. They're not a lot of Indigenous people here, and it's also a group that is just now coming to the fore. And I think it's really quite different from women, people of color, and LGBTQ people. This community, Cleveland Heights, has a lot of all three of those categories. Every community has a lot of women, probably 50%, but not every community has people of color. Not every community has, lots of gay people. So everybody is aware of these groups because they are so numerous here. That is not the case with Indigenous peoples. And in fact, the reason to put it in the charter is because it's a historic situation. It's an acknowledgement that where we sit, this beautiful hillside, this beautiful, which is the hill going up to Cleveland Heights is supposed to be the beginning of the Appalachian Mountains. Actually, literally, it is. There's a lot of wonderful geologic history that surrounds our city, and in particular, the Treaty of Greenville, the line of the treaty was the Cuyahoga River. So this is, I think it's pretty important and pretty significant, and I think it belongs more in the charter than any place else. Because quite honestly, Cynthia said she knows some people here who know that they're Indigenous and acknowledge it, but how many of us know Indigenous people living in Cleveland Heights? I don't know any. Cynthia doesn't live here, she's a friend of mine, but so it's not like, it's not like there's gonna be, it's probably more important, I think, to put in the charter than to have an Indigenous Peoples' Day, ironically, because we don't have very many Indigenous people here right now for very good historic reasons. So I think it's the kind of thing that should go in the charter. I think the fact that it's not in a lot of city charters is interesting because we pride ourselves on being a cutting edge city, a city that's forward looking. I think it will be in a lot of charters in the next decade. It will be added to a lot of charters because it's an acknowledgement and an affirmation of arrival of our awareness, of our new awareness that, there's a lot of sins were committed in the founding, and I think the situation in Israel with the West Bank and the settlers there is very illustrative of how you can't fix things if you don't acknowledge that there's an original sin. Same thing with racism. We can't fix things till we acknowledge that original sin. So, I think it's really important. The other thing that I would point out is we have a very strong national movement. I know it's not strong in Cleveland Heights, but it is very strong in the nation and it is strong in our state to rub out anything in our history that suggests that we're nothing less than all God's children. They want a Christian nationalist nation and, we're all God's children and we never did anything wrong in our history and everything is just fine. And I think this is a reminder that everything isn't fine and everything isn't fine if you're founded on massacres.
Is there a motion?
No.
Not yet.
Can I ask what the legal concern would be, Greg, or?
Legal concern?
Yeah.
Well, we talked at one of our early meetings, I think, about the risk, which may be small, but there is a risk that if you acknowledge that there is a claim that Indigenous people have to land, that could have negative consequences.
As in wanting to reclaim land?
Yes. And in some parts of the country, there are efforts to reclaim land by Indigenous people. And I'm not saying that that's a wrong thing for them to want. But I think the thing that I'm more concerned about in the context of this going into the charter is that it will cause people who belong to other groups to feel that they're being slighted because this is being put in the charter and their past injustices are not being recognized in the charter. But I've already said that before. So Jonathan or Roland or Guy, do you want to say anything? You haven't spoken yet.
I don't have anything at the moment.
Roland?
Well, I put out my thoughts earlier, so.
I'd like to mention, as we said about equality in the struggle for same-sex marriage, justice isn't pie. Doing justice to one group of people does not automatically deprive other people of justice. It's something that the more we do, the more we expand, kind of a thing. So in the sense of competing for recognition, I don't think, we're with the scarcity mentality we're bred into, we tend to think that way, but we should try and free ourselves of that because, again, justice for one group does not deprive other groups of justice if it's done correctly, if it's done justly.
Well, that's why I suggested adding to the city's acknowledged special events, because then I think it does present this to people as something that they may not have thought about before and they can now consider it. But Katie, do you want to say anything?
So I have three things to offer. One, as I've said and we've said, I'm sympathetic to everything that's said here and all, okay? I know that we have had a spokesperson in Graham to bring this forward to the Charter Review Commission. I'm not one to be the advocate for example, women and African Americans and LGBTQ. From the point of view of justice, is it just to include a provision in the charter for Indigenous people and ignore those claims that others have? I think it's more complicated. It's just a complicated issue. Okay, where does it come from? Where does the right come from? Where does the intention come from? And who actually should be entitled to have that kind of recognition? No one has been the advocate for anyone other than Indigenous people. So I don't know that we've actually heard and seen what would be the arguments for others. And for that reason, that's one aspect that I have. And the third one has to do with third one has to do with essentially the laziness of people's thinking. All right, in the sense that if it goes into the charter, Harriet, you say there's a distinction. I hear what you're saying. I can see what you're saying. I can see the rationale of what you're saying. I don't know that the layperson, general people who, especially those who could get upset, saying, how come I'm not featured there, are going to have the same level of precision in their thinking to see the distinction between, well, this is how we got the land, as opposed to this is how we live on the land, all right? Which means that you're not really, what you could be doing is generating a certain amount of unrest and dissatisfaction and all with the city, with the council, and and the council and all. So those are the considerations I have in my mind, as well as with respect to your comment, Drew, if I might say, if I vote against something, I'm positively voting that I do not want that in the charter. I'm not trying to block it or anything of that nature. I'm just simply expressing my opinion that I don't believe that belongs to the charter. So, and that's what I have to offer.
A couple things. I fought very hard to include other people in the non-discrimination policy. I fought very hard for that. So don't say that nobody else was speaking for other groups kind of thing. It was not appropriate to put it in a land acknowledgement in the non-discrimination policy. We had long discussions where I was saying these groups must stay in. So this is not unique here kind of thing. A couple other things. We had pride parades long before we had any legal equality. A Pride Month, a Black History Month, those are not justice. Those are events, those are consciousness raising, they are times for the community to come out and recognize itself and be recognized by others. But they are not the same thing as legal recognition of our rights as citizens, as residents kind of thing. So let's not, I don't want to offend any of it, but from my own history, let's not say that a month dedicated to my community is going to give me any kind of legal protection. No, it's not the same thing. And again, I know Jonathan's kind of chomping at the bits. Maybe Graham will make the motion kind of thing. But again, I really think that we can bring this to the community and have a really good conversation if we don't block it here. So I'd ask people, if you can't vote for it, to abstain.
So before I motion, I did just want to address some of the concerns that were brought up. So I think that looking at other groups who have been victims of injustice, right? I don't think that the acknowledgement of one group is in any way denigrating any other group, right? It is not a zero-sum game, right? It can be a yes and kind of situation. I think that we have land acknowledgements in institutions all across the country, and we don't see that kind of backlash against those institutions for recognizing Indigenous displacement. People aren't picketing outside of the city club complaining about their recognition of that, or outside the Museum of Art. For the legal concerns, the official legal advice was that concern was small, was a minimal risk. And we haven't, in Portland, where there is a larger Indigenous population, there has not been attempts to use the city's land acknowledgement as justification for seizing the land of the city of Portland. I don't think that that's a very real concern in this situation. And Linda, I think that the idea for a month of, an Indigenous month is a great idea. And I think that this land acknowledgement will encourage City Council to do that. And finally, I feel that what a land acknowledgement is supposed to do is supposed to be a reckoning for the people who are putting it forward. And I think that putting it forward in the charter rather than in the resolution would make the citizens of Cleveland Heights have to reckon with this. Because if it's a resolution the city council does, who is watching city council meetings? Nobody is watching city council meetings. There are like 10 views on YouTube and 10 people in the chambers. If we put it into the charter, it will spark a conversation in the community, requiring citizens to engage deeply with this issue and legitimately with this issue in a way that a resolution simply will not do. Right? So I think for this land acknowledgement to be real, putting in the charter is essential. So I would ask folks to vote for it. And so I will move that we put a land acknowledgement, this land acknowledgement in the charter, following the preamble would go in there.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. All those opposed, raise your hand. 5 opposed, doesn't pass. I would like to make a motion that we include in our report a strong recommendation that City Council adopt an ordinance with the land acknowledgement and consider creating special recognition of Indigenous people at some point during the year as an annual.
That motion?
Yes.
I'll second that motion.
Would you be open to a potentially friendly amendment?
Okay,
I think that we should strongly recommend to council that they look into a land acknowledgement with action and the ordinance or ordinances or resolutions or different things might be the mechanism, but I think we could recommend that this is important, it needs to be looked at and something they need to undertake to incorporate all citizens. So I'm thinking just broadening kind of what you said a little bit. But
so in other words, to have a land acknowledgement and leave it to City Council to decide what form that should take.
the land acknowledgement as well as the discussion with the community. And then, you know, there are mechanisms like resolutions, ordinances, they can put on the ballot, you know, charter amendments, so.
Do you wanna rephrase your motion?
Sure. Trying to think how. So it would be a motion that the report contain recommendations for council to explore Indigenous rights, acknowledgement, and there you go,
Recognition.
recognition, there we go.
Recommend that City Council look at adopting some form of a land acknowledgement and recognizing Indigenous rights.
I would just say more, it's not land acknowledgement, I would just say that the city council explore promoting Indigenous rights and recognizing the past. Let's go with that.
Recommend that City Council look at, I'm sorry, I lost the words.
Fine. Indigenous rights
So you want a recognition of Indigenous rights?
and reckoning with the past. We'll go with that for the moment. I just want the title.
Let me try phrasing it, so
Perfect.
say that City Council will look at adopting a land acknowledgement in some form to recognize Indigenous rights and past injustices.
That's, yeah, there you go. What you said.
Could I add something to that?
Sure.
And the continuous presence of Indigenous peoples in our community, because we want it to be in the future, present as well. It's not all past.
And I
Anybody else have a thought?
just wanna raise a point. Jonathan, when you spoke first, you used the word action. All right, so
Well, so-
something should be done. So this is not reflecting an action, I just pass it back to you.
Yeah, I mean, basically would have to figure out what that is. I mean, I don't know how in depth we wanna go. What I liked about Linda's phrasing was that it was broad enough, so if they do action, nothing but like, I mean, it's just, I want them to have a conversation and I'd like for the community to have it. So it's kind of a
Can
large,
we add the idea that, for example, they might wanna consider having a recognition of Indigenous people at a particular point every year?
yeah, I think that's.
This is an example, and they can
Yeah, and I think that's an example, and I can't remember the name, but the land acknowledgement, like, there are examples. And if you want, I'm happy,
I mean, every day on Indigenous Peoples' Day, the mayor could read a proclamation or something like that, whatever.
yeah, but instead of like limiting it or being prescriptive, it's just like, hey, think about this is important.
Yeah, something that's an active thing,
But
not just
giving
making a
them-
resolution and putting it on a shelf.
Yeah, and then giving them some tangibles, but we don't wanna just limit it, so incorporating the action key, which thinks,
Yeah, I just meant
yeah, I appreciate it,
It's
and then,
Could we, I'm sorry, this is a motion, I'll wait, I suggest.
well, it's a friendly amendment, so I don't know if you guys are good with that.
Well, we haven't voted on my
Sure,
motion yet,
amendment.
Okay,
so, true?
No, after we pass this, I'll come up with something else, thank you.
Okay, so here's what we got, guys. See if this works. I'm restating my motion.
Okay.
Recommend that city council consider adopting a land acknowledgement in some form to recognize the rights of Indigenous people, past injustices, and the continuous presence of Indigenous people in our community. And that they consider some concrete activity such as an Indigenous Peoples' Day or a month in order to put this in front of people every year. Do I have a second?
Graham seconded it initially, do you still second that?
Yeah.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
And could we include Graham's language in our report, because I would hate to lose it, I think
Yeah.
it's very well drafted.
Yeah, I think we were talking, yeah, we could suggest this, sure. Anybody have an objection to that?
What if I might, Graham did a great deal of work pulling together a lot of information from a lot of sources. I would like whoever's responsible for this portion of the report to consider including the benefit of what Graham has done.
Graham can write it.
Happy to.
Well, and I think you kind of already have, looking at that.
Yeah.
I realize, I realize this.
Yeah, you can prepare an insert for the report and, everybody can take a look at it, but you can certainly draft it, just like other people are drafting things they're particularly concerned about.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, thank you, I think we had some good collaboration on that. Okay, let's see. So the next item on our agenda is G. This has to do with the meeting. So he is preparing a press release that we will submit to Sun Press and the Jewish News. And Guy, would you mind also submitting something to the Heights Observer to put on their calendar? Because we submitted an article to them, but we didn't ask them to put it on the calendar. And then Lee was gonna pass the flyer to Mike Thomas for the newsletter. Okay, Guy and Harriet are gonna distribute flyers. If anybody wants to help them, you can work with them to split up the list. And I've got my chart and copies to take to the city council meeting. Anybody have any other ideas about publicity?
I just want to say one thing, I haven't talked to Harriet yet, but I know that my strategy in terms of getting the word out is a little bit more refined than it was last time. And what I wanna do is do some search of what are the places in the city that see the most people visiting them, for example, Kmart, I always say Kmart, it's not Kmart, Walmart. So Walmart's not in Cleveland Heights, but there's a lot of people from Cleveland Heights who go to Walmart, that kind of thing, Target, Walmart, all those places, to make sure that not only we have it posted, but we go back and make sure it's still there between now and May 20th.
Do they let people post?
I don't know. Usually, I know Target has, they talk about having a public
Okay,
community board. We're going to explore all the possibilities we can.
okay.
Oh, it's gonna end up in the newsletter that's emailed, is that what was covered?
Yeah, that's
That's the, okay, cause I didn't know who it belonged to, so that's what you, okay, thanks.
Alright, so I had circulated a draft of PowerPoint slides and everybody hadn't had a chance to look at them last time, so if anybody has any questions, comments.
And then Lee also printed them out, so we have.
On the second page, purpose, we are not providing the resident input, we are gathering it, so I would suggest changing that provide word to gather. I don't like to use the term solicit anymore
Okay.
because it's so ambiguous, but we're there basically to ask for it rather than to give it. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Mhm.
In the next page, I believe, what is a charter? Last sentence, changes to the charter require council and voter approval, I think, in some ways. Should we put that in, because that's part of the process?
Do you think it would?
What is the charter?
What is a charter, just the last point?
So what if the sentence read changes to the charter require council approval or like council to the voter? Or I don't know if council
It's a
voters.
council and voter approval.
Yeah, which I think.
That'd be shortest, yeah, that's fine, because we wanna make sure they know that step is part of it.
Yeah,
In the next one, history of Cleveland Heights Charter, the last selected amendments, is that already, that's already happened? We're noting that as the history up to this point, correct?
Where are you now?
Sorry, the next one, the history of Cleveland
Yeah.
Heights Charter.
Yeah.
The selected amendments have come on,
Right, those are things that have already happened.
yes.
Wouldn't we wanna say selected we're trying to say that's historic, right, that this wouldn't be the first time, so would selected amendments have been made, selected amendments?
We could say selected past amendments.
Yes, something like that.
Yeah, don't wanna have a lot of words on the slide.
what if, and would it be too simple if you just said voter approved amendments? Just to come home that it was on the ballot and so you should have seen it if you voted kind of a thing?
Okay,
And then that way it's just even shorter.
okay.
I don't even understand what that last bullet point means. History of Cleveland Heights Charter is a heading, selected amendments such as to address.
But the point is simply that there were changes that were made in 2019. And then there have also been other selected amendments, such as to address council vacancies that have happened since 2019. And also there were amendments in the past. So I'm trying to go in chronological
yes,
order
yeah,
here that the charter was created, there were various amendments over the years. It was amended in 2019. There were selected amendments to address council vacancies. I mean, there were very limited topics addressed in amendments since the changes to implement an elected mayor.
Yeah,
So
Linda
would
wants
that go in the,
to bring it right up to the present. And a lot of these selected amendments kind of flew under the radar. I don't think people are aware of them, but to be completely accurate up to the
but
present, we
shouldn't
need to
that be in a indented and have a empty circle?
No, because it has nothing to do with the 2019 ballot issue.
Well,
They were separate.
so the current charter is also not, it says charter now has dated in inconsistent text.
Well, that probably should come out. We need that
Yeah, I think that's not a, cause you're just going over the history.
history.
Yeah. And the 2019 is important because it was ballot initiative, but it was cut and paste, so that's why I think it's important to say what you say. Because then if people go like, well, why are you talking about this again? Oh, because.
I think the wording could be better on this. I'll try to work on wording.
I was speaking of wording, I know like when we make flyers or information at the hospital, like we have to make them for like we talk a lot about like health literacy and making wording so that it reaches like only like a 6th grade reading level or something like that. So I might recommend like wording things so that like everyone can understand. Like analogous, like word, I mean, you know what that means, but making
Where are
it
you saying that?
accessible for everyone. Like on what is a charter?
Okay,
Like that's just an example, but I
You
think
could say similar to.
I know like depending on what you use PowerPoint or like Word does like can make suggestions on like things like that, like reading levels and stuff like that. I'm happy to like help too. Like succinct language and
Yeah, I was going for succinct. Anybody have any other comments?
Nothing at the moment for me. When do we, when does this need to be finalized and the day of it does not count?
Well, this is for the May 21st meeting,
So we have so
so we have a little time.
yeah, okay.
But to your point, I'm not looking for edits to come in a couple days before. That's why I did it way well in advance, so everybody would have a chance to look at it and give me comments well in advance.
Can we go to commission activities?
Sure.
Due diligence is the heading, and do we want consideration of sampling of other mayor council charters? I would perhaps, we would wanna just say, rather than a consideration of sampling of other city, it isn't just the mayor council charters that we looked at, we also looked at the model charter. And that's not a mayor charter, mayor council
Well,
charter.
Let me suggest that I could mention the model one in my comments, but it doesn't have to go on the slide.
Sure. The last bullet, public comment, do you wanna just make clear with public comment in February 12th session and, February 12th session, cause that was and primarily it was February 12th session.
We have gotten a few emails. We haven't gotten very many, but.
Well, I'm just saying, no, it was the session that we had, not the email.
Well, it's on the next slide. We have
Oh.
February 12th public input meeting.
Yeah.
But we were inviting public comment all along.
Right,
We just
no,
haven't gotten much.
We haven't gotten much.
I'd like to suggest that additional detail can go into the report. This is just a slideshow,
That's right.
and we really don't need to get that granular. I mean, I believe we're hoping to have the report, or at least some draft of the report available at this session. Is that correct, Linda?
That's the goal.
Okay,
But
so
I'm
if-
waiting for inserts, folks.
yeah, but that means that the slideshow should be, I think, minimal, because we want to get through it quickly and people can, if they want more information, say, it's all in the report,
Yeah, so I did appreciate your suggestion, Graham. I did do a timing to see if I could cover the slides and how long it would take, and it's about 20 minutes. So I'm not planning to, read everything on the slides. It'd be more like, here's a list of our activities. We really tried to be open and transparent.
And they'll be detailed in the document we'll have, so it's,
Yeah, exactly.
Who's our tech person? Because every time I've done one of these, a question comes up about, could you go back 3 slides? Because I have a question about that. Who's gonna be our slide master?
I can do that.
Okay.
Well, it would be helpful, do you have a clicker? So I could advance the slides?
Does the city? Alright,
was at the library,
Yeah,
right?
the library should hopefully have,
maybe they, yeah.
I would assume.
I feel like they don't. I've presented in this room before and had to stand by the laptop.
Well, I may be,
But I mean, like-
I may be able to follow one.
I might be able to find one. Let me see if I can.
There's a podium.
They do have a little AV podium.
okay.
Do we have to make special arrangements to use that?
I don't think so. I didn't.
Is there
We
a
have
virtual
to ask them to put it in the room.
for this too?
Hmm?
Is there a virtual option for this too,
No.
or is it just in person?
It's just in person. Okay, does anybody have any other comments? This is very helpful.
And what time is it open for us, not for,
5:30.
5:30, okay.
And Lee, I don't know if you or I, since you've been the last person to contact the library, like a couple days before, I always like to go down and just double check that it's on the calendar. And, you know, we get the, whatever we need, whether it's the, podium or this or that sort of thing. Would you like me to do that, or do you want to do that?
Go down the day before?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'm happy to do it, I just want to make sure that the two of us aren't there doing it.
So who's doing it?
I'll do it.
Okay, thank you. So many times when you don't check ahead of time, they say, oh, I don't know if this didn't get on our calendar somehow. In which case, to add to Lee's burden kind of thing, that if you want to make a list of the things you think you'll need as the presenter, like a podium or this or that.
Well, I think it might be worth calling them ahead of time to ask about the podium and the chair setup.
Right.
But maybe, maybe what we should do is, we've used that room a lot in the past, but I haven't used it recently with the divider open. We've only had one room or the other and not both. But they usually have the room set up. And I don't know how amenable they are if we ask them in advance to rearranging the chairs. Would you like to find that out? Give them a call and ask?
My experience is as long as you give them advance notice, they're okay with, the different chairs set up just, so that the people who set up the chairs know what they're being asked to do.
Yeah, because I think what we want is like a table at the front with the podium and then just chairs set up in rows. We don't need tables.
No, but I was thinking with a long rectangle, we should be in the middle of one of the long sides. Rather than if we were at the end, that puts a much greater distance between us and the people in the back row. I don't know if that's clear, but if we're in the middle of the long side and the chairs are
You
arched
have to see
around
where the
it.
screen is.
Yeah, that's the
You
other.
have to orient to the screen.
That's the other limitation. So, and I don't know if it's a drop-down screen or a portable
I
screen.
think it is a drop down.
Okay.
And I don't remember where it's located. I don't remember if they have one in each room.
I don't know. I've seen the one I was.
There's one on the
The
north side.
Yeah. I'll go down and check it out and ask.
But even if we're on the north side, we could be on the side.
Yes. Because once Linda's done her presentation, I think the more we are close to as many of the people as possible makes it more accessible.
Well, do you know, Lee, is Steve planning to bring his stuff with him or does the library already have a setup for recording?
I think he has to bring his own stuff.
Okay.
Well, and he's just bringing it for the recording.
Does that
Just be
include the sound
explicit.
system?
Well, I mean, I guess they have their own microphones, right, so.
Well, I don't know what they have.
So I said, like, it might, explicit. What do we need from them? What is he gonna bring?
That's why, and I would recommend checking before the day before, because sometimes,
Mhm.
getting everything ordered and present in that library could take more than a day.
Okay.
Thanks for all your work on this.
Does anybody have any other comments on the slides? Okay.
Well, Linda, if I worked on some new language, would you be amenable
If you
to
have suggestions, let me know sooner rather than later, please.
Yeah, I think a slide for the award ceremony when we all get, the key to the city or something like that.
Okay,
I like the little logo on the bottom of each slide.
well, that was from the prior commission's
Oh, I
stuff. I copied their format. I just cut and pasted. But if you have any suggestions, Terry, why don't you give me some edits and then we can have a new draft
Okay.
for the next meeting. We ready to move on?
Mhm.
Okay, so now we're at 6H. So this is the new draft that's up on the screen. So this includes
So Article 5.
Article 5, there was some text moved out of Article 5 and moved to the new section on commissions, which is in 12, I think.
Okay.
So
8, 13.
Wasn't the non-discrimination being 13, did the numbers change?
Alright,
think it
commissions.
has.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
so this language, was moved, but I pointed out to Lee that we need to say that council also can abolish or combine any boards or commissions, and also that council cannot abolish the 2 commissions that are specified in the charter.
We had that language in front of us somewhere, didn't we?
We have it in the section on departments, so it's the same concept being added here.
Okay.
Yeah, because I remember reading
So
it,
we'll,
something
you know,
to
we'll have that wording added in for next time.
that's, you can do abolish, combine, others, don't touch these 2,
Yeah.
right?
And I
Abolish or
Highly
combine.
technical language.
I apologize for memory lapse, didn't we put a number of other commissions into the charter as being chartered commissions?
No, we
discussed
didn't
that.
add any more charter, we didn't add any more commissions, we had planning commission and civil service.
We had a list though, but we decided not to put those into the, as a step.
I don't recall having any discussion about adding more commissions.
All right.
Was that departments or commissions?
If I'm not mistaken, there was an article in the Heights Observer by Deborah Van Cleef and Carla Rautenberg that talked about how that the commission, that all these commissions were in the charter. I think they said in the bottom of the byline underneath the article that, you know, in other words, they put it out that these things were in the charter, including the Board of Control. Because they were trying to get people to volunteer to be on commissions.
Well, there may be a misunderstanding about that. So we'll bring that text back for Saturday, that will just take that won't take long to fix. Then we had an open issue on the initiative language that had to do with whether substantive changes were permitted after a petition had been signed by the requisite number of registered voters. So, and Guy did some research about this, quite a bit of research, so thank you for that, Guy. And gave us a chart, which was very helpful. So Guy, do you wanna lead us through this?
Yeah,
And then this is the email and the chart that we have, right?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Where is it, in this,
It's in the packet, yeah, it's in that file.
in addition to the analysis that I did, Lee also had done some analysis of what other cities have in terms of provisions related to initiatives, and it is in the CRC questions to answers to those questions, which is, I uploaded that file up to the Dropbox, if you go to the Dropbox working, just so we have, just so that's available to look at.
It's that big chart with all the law department feedback and the facilitator feedback that we discussed a few meetings ago.
It's, I just uploaded it.
Initiative analysis?
No, it's actually, I uploaded it this afternoon, so it might be, excuse me, it might be,
It's the PDF from
it's the one
South.
on the very top, It's
Oh, okay,
CRC
got it.
questions and answers that we attributed to Lee.
It's like page 5 of that.
It's toward the back. There's a,
Can the mayor be excluded? Is that where it starts at the top or?
I don't remember what's at the top, but the initiative thing is towards the bottom. What do other cities do about it, changes to initiative petitions?
it's actually a table. I'd like to look at the table, which is this third last page, I think, of the whole document. Wait a minute, did we pass that? No, wait a minute, there it is. Oh, it's a,
Up or down?
Down to the
Down.
next page.
is that the one that relates to initiatives?
Substantive changes to initiative petition.
Yeah, so we'll get to that in just a minute. So what triggered for me, I was concerned because I wasn't comfortable with where we were at in our discussions on the issue of initiatives. And how about what about if people want to change things in the petition, and who has the right to change it, how much can it change? That sort of thing. So what I did was I went back and looked at South Euclid, Lakewood, and Cleveland Heights, and then Lee has done work on that one concerning changes to the petition. there are different approaches in the cities about that, about how to deal with changes. And to make it simple, I would say in Cleveland Heights, we have described a process where you can submit a petition, then it can be changed and amended. But it can't be changed and amended substantively without really defining what
If I could
substantive.
just interrupt for a second, that was a proposal from the 2019 commission, it hasn't been put in the charter.
Okay.
The part about it can't be substantive.
Oh, I'm sorry, right, but because we went to we took, in our red line version, don't we have that? We have that reflected in our red line version. 'Cause
I believe we do.
brought that into it. We brought that into our version.
But we have an open question as to whether we like that.
Yeah, right, so,
I find you want me to go to the red line or you want to keep the chart?
so I think you can leave this for just, for right now, people might ask for material. But basically in Cleveland Heights, we can in Cleveland Heights, the committee that brings forth the petition can ask that if council refuses it or doesn't act on it timely, the committee can ask that the original version be put on the ballot. The committee can ask that an amended version can be put on the ballot. And those would be amendments that were reflected either in public hearings or hearing discussion before council, all right? So the committee can ask for either one of those to go to the ballot. In that case, there aren't any more requirements. It would just be the decision of the committee to decide what they want to put out to what they would put out to the voters. South Euclid has really quite simple. South Euclid basically doesn't mention anything about changing anything in the petition. So it just goes or it doesn't go onto the ballot. If the council refuses it, they can put it up on the ballot. Lakewood has a bit more nuanced process, which I have to admit I like. And their process is that if 5% of the people who voted in the last mayoral election and 5% of the people sign petitions, then that petition comes to council for their consideration. If council passes it, the story's over. If council either doesn't act on it within the time frame or refuses it or changes it, the committee then can make a decision. The committee can ask council to put onto the ballot what was originally submitted. To do so, they have to raise 5% more petitions. They have to get the signatures of 5% more voters. So there'd be 5% to get it started with the council, 5% more to get it onto the ballot for a total of 10% if they change it. But that means that would mean that the new revised, amended, whatever, however it's been changed, 5% of the population has to say, yes, we want that to go up on the ballot, just as the original did.
So Key, I think, because the Lakewood one is very, very confusing. And Lee and I talked about this and I read it several times. But I think what it's saying is that if the legislation is approved in its original form, so they've gotten 5%, it's been approved, and now the committee has to go to council and say, we want you to put it on the ballot. They have to get another 5% to put it on the ballot in the original form, so they get a total of 10.
In the original form.
But if it's changed, they need to get 10%.
Right. It's just as though it starts over.
Right.
They have to get 10%, but it's not subject to council refusing to put it on the ballot. They just get the 10% of what they've got goes on the ballot.
So they have to get a new 10%, or they can, is it additive? They can get 5% more?
No, sorry.
They get a whole new 10%.
It appears that when it's supplemental signatures to put the original content on the ballot, that's supplemental, meaning they have to be new signatures, so new 5%. When they're saying we've changed it, then it's just 10% of the people. It doesn't matter. You got the same 10% we have as you did the first time.
What's wrong with what's wrong with the proposed language? I'm just trying to get my head around because
What's wrong with our language, in my opinion, is that there's no check on the amendments. That whoever decides they want to make an amendment, either in public hearings in a committee or in the council, can change it to anything that anybody wants it to be changed to, and there's no consultation with the people in any way.
So the people have signed a petition to
petition.
get the initiative in front of council. And then it goes through committee, and then during that, at least right now, anyone can change it at any time.
No, it's
No,
not the
the
case,
council.
no, it can
I'm
be
sorry.
changed in committee, or it can be changed in front of the council,
Okay,
those two places, yeah.
got it. And then council, if they pass it though with an amended language,
Well, okay,
The committee decides whether they wanna put before the voters in the original form or the changed form.
and the committee decides that
Committee
before
decides
even
that
touches
no more
council.
signatures needed, no
Okay.
consultation with people who've signed the original.
Okay,
the residents don't have any input whatsoever on that, in what goes then to the voters, other than the fact that they'll vote on it eventually.
so the committee can get it to the voters, not council?
Well, the committee has to vote to require council to put it in front of the voters.
Got
But
it,
the committee doesn't have the power to cause it to be on the ballot, the council has to do it.
okay,
And so we can be putting something on the ballot for people that in ways doesn't resemble what was originally signed by the petitioner, signers. And that doesn't feel good to me. The people sign something, they sign a petition, then it goes to the voters and it doesn't resemble necessarily, maybe in some way that's important to some, to a portion of the voters, doesn't resemble what people signed. And so it sounds like, to me, what makes me comfortable about Lakewood is that in Lakewood's case, it says, okay, if you're changing it, you at least have to get another 5% of the people to vote, to sign petitions to say, yes, this belongs on the ballot. So you've got some testament of the residents, the same as you did when you first brought it to council. On the other hand, if you change the content of the petition, you just start over. You get 10%. You just have to go out and get 10%. So it has as much validity among the residents as the original petition.
so,
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
The current charter says if the committee wants to propose changes, additions, or amendments, it has to be done at a public hearing before the committee of council or during the resolute consideration of the proposed measure by the council. So there is public, it has to be done in public and the public can comment on that. And then it also says that no substantive alterations take place, kind of thing.
But the no substantive alterations is not in our charter right now. That was what was
That's the
proposed by the
proposed, yeah.
2019 commission.
I think if we put that in, I would prefer that than to say you gotta start all over again, or now you gotta get 5% new kind of thing, because it's like, I think that's putting obstacles in the way of democracy. I mean, so if we put in the, and again, I'm sorry, we last time we said we didn't highlight this, but that's the new language kind of thing. If we put in the prohibition against any substantive changes, I think that should take care of it.
Well, so,
I think the other thing is, it's not the petitioners that are changing it, it's the city council that changed it. And the petitioners, they went out and did all this work, and maybe it would give more power to the citizens or something and take away power from city council or something. City council doesn't like it, city council, sort of changes it, and then everything falls back on the petitioners again. That doesn't seem fair.
so, but from my
People really work their butts off to collect the signatures. People don't read the petitions anyway. They sign things because they think a huge reason for signing an initiative petition is the voter feels sight unseen that it's a wonderful thing. It's a good democratic process. So if people get this many signatures and work hard enough to get that many signatures, then it ought to go on the ballot, whether or not they agree with it or not. So
But are you saying, Harriet, that you don't like changes being made?
no, I'm not saying that at all.
Tell me what you are saying, 'cause
What
I'm
I'm
confused.
saying is the petitioners have worked very hard
I got
to
that
go out
part.
and get these signatures.
Yeah.
And it seems punitive for them to have to go, if city council tweaks it and the petitioners say, all right, because the city council won't agree to it otherwise unless they put their tweak into it. And it seems unfair and it would be a disincentive for those petitioners to go back and start all over again from the beginning. And they probably more than likely wouldn't do it. So there's the end of democracy there, because it's just a pain in the ass.
So if I could rephrase
They're
this,
doing
you
the
think-
same work twice.
If I could rephrase this, your argument is that allowing for the possibility of changes to be made in part of the council process puts too much power in the hands of council, and takes power away from the public initiator group.
Right.
Well, so I thought also though, what you were saying here, and please correct me, was if changes that require the petitioners to do more signatures because someone else is making changes is punitive, like they shouldn't have to
Well,
get more
it's
signatures after the fact.
It's a disincentive for, it's gonna end,
Okay.
it's more than likely gonna end the whole shooting match. Cause why would they spend June and July every hot Sunday getting signatures and then why would they
Get more.
do September, October?
Well, also, I believe what Guy was saying is they have to be new signatures, not the people who had signed the original.
No, he said they could be signatures.
Okay, all right.
It depends if you're putting forth the original text, it's another, in Lakewood, it's another 5% to go from submitting it to council to submitting it to the public. Okay, if it's the original text. If it's not the original text, then you have to get 10% of the people
You're
to say.
starting over.
You're starting over with looking for 10% of the people, all right, because the text has changed.
So can I pull up the red line?
Yeah,
Sure.
please,
Yeah,
I
I
got it in front of me.
This is 8.1.
It's on page 23.
I'm making a pro-volunteer argument.
I understand. I just wasn't sure where you were going.
Voters,
Because I think we had a little bit of a conversation about this last time in terms of whether you could argue that having this ability for things to change could hurt
Down to section.
the people who are in support of the initiative, because they could be pressured to change it just because they could.
Okay, but here's what's
yeah,
throwing me
well, I
off.
mean,
Is here it says, okay, one, there's two committees in here, which is confusing as hell. If council rejects, so, okay, you can take final action, council has to act in 30 days. If the council rejects it or fails to act, or pass in different form, the committee of petitioners, completely different committee, so the people that put it forward could say, no, it gotta be submitted to the vote of the people in its original form. Or the same petitioners could say that the proposed measure must be submitted to a vote with any proposed changes, omissions, or amendments. Like, it seems like one, it comes out of council committee, possibly changed. And then it's at council. And at council, they can pass it or whatever from committee. Then the petitioners are their own committee and can be like, we don't like that, do it our way. And can completely take it back to the original. If I'm reading this right.
the changes.
Right. The
It gives
committee,
the
the committee
petitioners
of
the-
petitioners could say to council, no, we want our way, gotta put our way on, which is what happened with the committee for an elected mayor.
Okay,
Or the committee of petitioners could say to council, well, okay, you made these 3 changes, we're okay with that.
and that's what is here if I'm reading it. Or
That's
is
what's
there,
in the
are there,
charter right now.
okay, but there's not percentages right now, right?
There's
Okay.
no provision in our charter to go back for any extra signatures, that's like,
Just getting my head fully around,
Yeah.
and then I noticed there were 2 committees and I thought that was fun.
well, we could fix that wording, cause I
I
agree
know,
with
but I
that,
was like-
confusing.
Committee of the council and then committee of the petitioners.
So this should say maybe the date of the report of the council committee or committee of council, just to differentiate between the yeah.
To council rejects it, and then we would have to come up with a clever title for committee of petitioners.
Well, committee of petitioners, okay, just so we know it's
Petitioners
you
by
can just say the
committee.
petitioners.
see, down here it says it has a
I don't
public hearing before the committee of council, so maybe up there you should say the report
Why
of the
can't you just say the
committee of council.
petitioners?
Okay, what if we just say petitioners?
Yeah, really.
Because there's a committee, it's not all the petitioners, it's just the committee,
So there's like a subset of.
yeah,
that,
there's
like,
5 people.
People who are concerned, I think it's 5, I'm not sure
Yeah.
it's 5.
They have to be identified on the petition.
Oh, it's like.
Say, we're concerned about this, and we're gonna have a petition.
Okay,
They go through a process, and then they
Got
get
it.
signatures, and
So they're
10% of
They're sort of deputized by the 5% of the
Okay.
voters who sign
they're like
the petitions. So I think, putting aside these little language tweaks, I think the real issue we have to think about is, do we want to keep what we have now?
Well, that's the
Which-
2019 language, right? Or
No,
is
let me say what I'm gonna say. Do we want to keep what's in the charter right now, which gives discretion to the committee of the petitioners to say, well, we wanna put forward our ballot initiative, take it or leave it, or we've worked with council, there's a few little changes, we wanna go with what council proposed. Do we wanna give them that discretion? Or do we want to adopt the change that the 2019 commission introduced, which was you can make changes, but it can't be substantive. Which could lead to a whole lot of debate about what's substantive and what isn't. Or,
So that's this.
to Guy's point, we could say, well, we like the Lakewood thing, which is just a different way of handling possible changes during negotiations.
I'm just stuck. I don't think we should do the substantive because the first thing that I saw when I read that was prove it. What the hell is substantive? And if the voters go and pass something, are you gonna retroactively go and argue? Like, it just sounds like a cluster. And also that it wouldn't have made it to the ballot. If something gets through the ballot that's substantive, people aren't paying attention, I'm sorry, you're idiots. Like, come on. So I would take out the substantive and I would keep it as is. That's my 2 cents.
So you wanna keep what's in the charter now?
But can I clarify? This is not, I don't know what is in the current charter, but this is in a red line version, which is the 2019 that we reviewed, and whatever it is, we came out in discussions back in July and August, right?
But this, as of our recent discussions, this notion about changes can't be substantive was open. We flagged this as something we wanted to think about further.
Yes. Yeah, this is the original language. Or I mean the current charter language, correctly?
Should be, yeah.
I went to original, so I don't know since spacing changed where exactly to go. Here we
It
go.
would be,
Upon receiving the proposed measure.
if the council rejects is in the,
Yeah, if the
Original.
council rejects, this is how it's supposed to go down as of like today. Proposed measure, committee of the petitioners may require that it be
Right.
submitted to a vote of the electors or that, okay.
It doesn't prohibit substantive
Or
change.
that it be substantive.
But basically, that was what we were looking at before, but the part about no substantive changes was not part of that, is not part of the current charter.
Yeah.
So I think can we split this up into some motions so we can move forward? A motion possibly to add the text about substantive change, to get that in or out, and then decide whether we want to change other parts of it. Does that make sense?
I think it makes sense.
So that,
I will make a motion that we,
You know, it's harder to read when you.
just for purposes of getting this
Yeah, I know.
crystallized, I'm gonna make a motion that we
I can
keep it as it is in the charter today. That's my motion.
like,
Do I have a second?
we made some adjustments today.
Well,
not today.
keep it as is today
Yeah, do it.
without adding the non-substantive change language.
Oh, okay, following you.
Yeah,
Keep it the way it is in the draft without the substantive change language.
Yeah, we would just strike the substantive change language.
Strike that.
Cause the draft gets into our little tweaks today is what Drew's saying, and then,
'Cause
That's
we-
my motion.
Yeah, we did make a couple tweaks today, and we are including them
I
in
just
the-
said the draft as it is today without the non-substantive change feature.
Can you read that language then?
Which language?
yeah, okay.
We're supposed to- The language we're
The
supposed to be
only,
voting
the
on.
only, you wanna read the whole thing?
Well,
I'm,
this is the part that I'm not clear.
Harriet, do you have a copy of the charter in front of you?
I
Why don't you
do,
look at
I was
it?
looking at the screen, but
but yeah, if you go to, it's section 8.1, section C.
I think we just added in the fourth line, council committee's report.
Yeah,
I mean, the changes we made today were not, they weren't substantive.
so 8.1 C.
5%.
They help make it easier to read, but
5%.
And then so right here, this is all stuff from 2019. Here is where this starts the substantive, and that's what, we made a minor tweak up here today, and Linda's saying, let's keep all this, but drop out the substantive. So this sentence from in to signatures.
Does that make sense? At least physically what I just pointed out?
So Linda made a motion, and I think we're
I don't
clear
have
on
a
it now.
second.
I'll second it.
discussion?
The only discussion I wanna offer is that the reason why, the one concern I have is that I believe that petitioners sign a petition. And in the case of what we've described here as the process, what goes to the voters and what the petitioners sign can be different.
Mhm.
And without discussion of how different can it be, or whatever. So it can be different, and I just don't think that's a wise idea in terms of the way we wanna run our government. I like what Lakewood does, which says that if you wanna change it, go right ahead, go get 10% of the voters to sign it. And that's my reservation, okay? Having said that, that's all.
Well, I would say that if we, certainly, one of the charters you looked at didn't allow any changes,
South Euclid.
which simply would mean that if something was brought to council, and let's say there was a robust discussion about it, and council raised some new things, and the group of petitioners said, well, okay, maybe that makes sense, we'll have to go back to the drawing board, they'd have to go back and get all new signatures, which is the same result as what Lakewood does.
When they want to, that's right, when they want to go forward with something that's not been changed.
But if I'm sorry, go ahead, Harriet.
Can we take a historical example? Committee for elected mayor. The council was adamantly opposed to that change. So the petitioners go to city council and the city council wants to make changes that would make it difficult, more difficult for the petitioners to they want language changes that would just raise the threshold so that the voters can't maybe language, like the state of Ohio does this all the time, makes language changes that are murky and impossible to understand. So this is not out of the realm of possibility, but the petitioners are strategic. They look at this and say, well, we want this, it retains, say, the election of the mayor. We want the election of the mayor. We'll go with a couple of your changes. And then it seems like not fair to have all those citizens for elected mayor, they have to go back and start all over again. It's just, I've gathered thousands of signatures in my life, and it is hard. I'm telling you, it is hard work, and you have to be so committed to something. And the voter just signed. The voter's going to get a cup of coffee at Stone Oven, and on the way out, somebody asks them to sign a petition. Okay, because the voters are amenable. They're agreeable. They want to be friendly. Very few voters.
They know you and they want to make you happy.
Yeah, very few voters read the petition at all. I would say 1% to 2% of people who sign petitions, in my experience, have show any interest in reading the amendment. Some people do, maybe 5%.
I think we're kind of restating previous arguments.
But it seems very punitive to that committee that has worked so hard to get this to where it is, and then they agree to make a few changes, and then it throws back.
So you're saying we should keep the language as it is now?
Yes.
Which is, I think what I said.
That's the motion, okay, so you're supporting the motion.
Yeah.
And then once it clears all of this, it still has to be voted on by the voters, right?
Yeah.
So theoretically, best case scenario, somebody go, that's not what I signed, and then vote against it.
It could happen.
Good. Say that.
Or I didn't read the damn thing, sure, like it could go either way. Like, okay, I wanna make sure it gets it to ballot.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think in the real world, people who are, I've never been part of one of these committees, but I would think that if you were on a committee and you have a group of people who have worked very hard to get something put together, to get the necessary signatures, to present it to council, I don't think they're gonna be frivolous about making changes. I think they may agree to changes, to your point, that are a couple of strategic changes, doesn't really break their hearts, they're still kind of getting what they want, but they may be willing to accept a couple changes just to get it on the ballot.
Yeah.
Without any more
Fuss.
yeah.
See, so the crux I'm coming from is I've experienced, multiple times at work where you get something through, and if there's not some flexibility, like council could totally want it and sign up for it and have the best idea, but if they can't make that amendment or that tweak because the committee didn't think of it, like I just see it as a flexibility that can really help. Or be harmful. It goes both ways, cuts both ways, absolutely.
The other thing that is worth saying, this may not be true in Cleveland Heights, but it could be. I mean, the elected, I don't know how long, I can't remember how long the CEM petition was, but the Fair Vote petition is pages. I mean,
That's only 30 pages,
yeah, and it's really complicated.
maybe 20.
In practice, you know, it's really hard. I mean, even if it's only 5 pages or 2 pages, a petition signer is very unlikely to insist on reading every word of the petition. They're signing on to the concept.
I'd like to call the question.
Any further discussion anybody wants to? Okay, so the motion is, we're taking the language that's on the screen, but not the change that limits to non-substantive changes. That's the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Alright, so we have, let's show of hands on the yeses. 1, 2, 3, 6, yes. How did you vote, Stephanie?
Yes.
7 yes. 7 yes, 2 no. Okay. Okay, thank you very much for all your work.
Yeah, well,
Appreciate it.
you're welcome.
Thank you, Gabe.
Now we have it up, it's resolved.
Well, I
Glad to see
think the liquid thing just is so complicated, it makes my head hurt.
Sorry.
No, it's not your fault. So I just wanna mention that there's some language here that talks about, you have a question here, which is an excellent question. Is a public hearing required? And the question is, no.
Thank you.
The committee may provide for a public hearing. I want to propose that we should change that to say the committee shall provide or must provide for a public hearing.
Can you tell, are you
Which
still in
committee?
C?
Where are we?
Council committee.
Council.
Are you still in C? Are you in
No,
B?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
No,
Hey, where am I?
it's not here because it doesn't exist in all, or wait a minute.
Tell us that so we know what we're
So the committee to which the petitioner is referred may provide
May
for public hearing.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it is there.
So where is?
On the proposed legislation, you're saying to go from may to shall.
Whereabouts is that?
Yeah, I want to say,
That's block of.
the committee to which, this is the committee of council to which the petition is referred must provide for public hearing. Public hearings,
Must or shall?
Must.
You're-
I think we're
you're
using
determining,
must.
So must, okay, whatever.
is it must our preferred word?
We haven't made that change universally, if somebody wants to, it's complicated to do,
I think you and I discussed must.
Let's just use must, it's fine.
it works here, yeah.
So you're saying to change the sentence to read, the committee of council, that is spelled wrong, to which the petition is referred must provide for public hearings.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my motion.
I'll second that.
Well, I wanna make sure where it goes next. Our public hearings on the proposed legislation, period. Where's our next sentence start?
Not later than the second regular, this is the next sentence.
So this is before C, right?
Yeah, here, let
It's in
me
B.
try this. Bear with me for a minute.
Thank you for reading it. Oh, I forgot about that.
There you
I
go.
did a lot of reading the last 2 days.
That is-
I'm punchy. I'm a little punchy.
Okay, so I wanna make sure the next sentence is grammatical, not later than the second regular meeting of the council, following the meeting with the blah, 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 the committee run must report. Okay, so that is grammatical, all right. The council committee, do you wanna say down there?
Our committee of council or whatever.
Yeah, whatever, yes, yeah. I just wanna make sure when we do stuff like that, we're preserving the grammar and the adjacent sentences.
Oh, may, shall.
So I guess a friendly amendment to yours, or would be that in this section, there is clear distinction between the committee for council and the committee of petitioners. That way, if we miss something right now, we'll at least capture it.
Yeah.
Lee'll do it.
So would there be an instance when the council committee could meet and it's not a public hearing? I mean, by definition, if they meet, if there's a quorum of that committee, it has to be public.
This would require them to have a meeting on this.
So essentially, instead of just saying we're not gonna meet
But
at
it
all.
says they may provide for a public hearing. I think it should say must, I mean,
Shall,
Craig.
or-
What I'm saying is it's discretionary now, they don't have to have a committee
Right.
meeting, right? They could just refer it on,
Right.
and I guess we're making it
I mean,
mandatory
to do any action, they'd have to have a meeting, which would have to be public.
regardless.
I think it's a bad look to say they may.
I see what you're saying.
I guess it's just, it's requiring a step that they have a discretion to skip if they want it.
That's what may
I'm
would
fine
mean
with
to
it.
me.
Right, but I'm fine with taking that step.
Well, but at the same time, I mean, to your point, which is kind of nice, is all they would have to do is meet and act on it to move it. So yes, there's still a meeting, but they would have to do like what we're doing at the library, that kind of public hearing. Just as long as it's public, right?
No, I don't think so. I think they have to have a public hearing.
As a
Well,
public
all their
hearing,
meetings, their meetings are public.
No, that's what I mean,
They
yeah.
must have one.
Yeah,
It's
but
not a
it could be a, hey, we should up, you guys liked it, cool, and then leave. Like, it could be that simple.
Well, it's notice, publication, everything else, all the steps that
Got
go.
it, got it, got it. Okay, that's something to think about.
But isn't a public hearing different from a committee meeting?
That's what that was my question.
Lee?
I don't know how it'd be different. I mean, no, I don't think so.
The only way it would,
Well, a public hearing you have to announce.
Well, they have to announce their
Committee.
meetings.
If they announce committee meetings.
They're public meetings, they have to announce them, just like we have to announce our meetings. Every blessed one.
Well, I know we announce
It's
ours.
only appropriate.
If the committee meets every first Thursday morning, do they announce it each?
They put up agendas on the website.
So can I ask Craig, what you're saying is basically this is redundant to requirements, current requirements?
by definition, if they have a meeting, it has to be public. They can't meet an executive session because it's a committee. So therefore, if they have any meeting or hearing, it's gonna be public.
I understand, but do they have to, I'm sorry.
So, but they don't have to have it. My understanding is, like I said, like Linda said, it's discretionary now, so they could just skip that step.
Yeah, they don't necessarily have to invite discussion about it, which is what the public hearing would be, right?
No, he's saying they don't have to meet at all. It could go straight to council.
Well, wouldn't, is that right?
That's my interpretation of it.
Yeah, okay,
So we're just taking a discretionary step of the committee and we're making it mandatory. We're saying you
Yeah.
have to have a meeting. You can't skip this step. But by definition, if they have a meeting, it's automatically public.
Yeah.
I'm fine with making it mandatory. I don't have a problem with that.
I think also part of what Greg is saying, the committee of the whole, when they meet, they do not allow public comment, as I believe. So that would, so if it just goes directly to the committee of the whole, then the public is pretty much shut out of the
Sure, yeah.
conversation there. Secondly, public hearings, do we wanna make that a public hearing?
No, I want a plural.
Okay, yeah, now in which case, no later than the second regular meeting of the council, blah, 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 so are we giving them enough time?
Sure, they can have two meetings.
No, the committee, so this is when the city council refers this, when it first comes to the council and they bounce it to the committee, then the committee is supposed to have more than one public hearing before they can get within two regular meetings?
Yeah, because that's a month.
Well, it also says must provide for, so I would say if that's now and then December, like I provided for it.
So we're leaving
It's
some
the
of the time.
council by the clerk is what's throwing me
Must and
off.
shall.
Second regular meeting of the council following the
Who
meeting.
else does the
which
job?
has
Some
a
people
very
do the
specific
challenge.
time limit.
I mean, it goes into crazy angels dancing on pins stuff.
I mean, yeah, but I'm stuck on
We
provide.
talk about Oxford Commas too.
This is good point.
Well, that's
But shall is softer than.
I like this. This is important stuff.
so can I, is it time, is there more discussion on this particular provision? Whether or not should we?
Because we're not, there's a lot of moving parts we're discussing, as we
All
have.
right, well, let's hear what your issues are.
So what-
You have an issue? What's the issue?
Okay, so I wanna make sure that if we, starting them with public hearings plural, that we're giving them enough time because they have two council meetings after this is
Yeah.
referred to them.
Yeah.
I just wanna make sure everybody understands that, because that's like we're saying, okay, like let's say between now and the end of May, we're charged with 2 public presentations, are we okay with that?
Be a breeze. No problem at all.
Yeah, right. Do it in our sleep.
Yeah, it gives them a month. I mean, there's supposed to be some promptness about processing these things because people have gone through the trouble of getting all those signatures.
And again, sorry to be, but in which case, if they send it to the committee of the whole, that short circuits all this stuff that we're trying to do with public hearings, unless we can.
Well, I don't think so because it says that they have to have a public hearing.
Does the committee of the whole, do they do public hearings?
Well, people can sit in on a meeting.
Not quite the same, really.
Public hearing is
They
i.e.
could have a committee of the whole that has interaction with the
I
public.
think
There's,
everybody-
can't they leave? There's nothing that prohibits it.
No,
What do you mean, no?
I mean, no, they could have public comment.
Okay.
I just want
I
to
mean,
make sure.
I went to a committee of the whole meeting and they asked me a question and I was allowed to answer the question.
But that seems to be,
Hardly a public hearing.
well,
Well,
only a committee of the whole is discretionary. If the chair wants to invite public comment, they can, but they do not have to allow it.
are you suggesting an amendment?
Well, if the intention is to make sure that we get public hearings on these things, then I would strike committee of the whole because that is a possible short circuit to our intention.
I think that we should have Lee investigate the difference between a public hearing and a committee meeting. Because I think a public hearing is a distinct thing and it's different from a committee meeting. I'm sorry, these committees meet in here, one or two people from the public comment, it's no biggie. We're having a public hearing where we invite the public, where there's a notice posted, where people are invited to come and talk, to let council know how they feel.
But you don't have to allow public comments in a public meeting. I mean, city council could say we're doing it without public comments tomorrow, and that's legal. It's a public meeting, it's open to the public, you can
But we
attend.
wanna make it so that the public can comment.
I'm saying the legal
Well-
definition of public hearings is distinct in that it's just open.
Well, okay,
Public
well, I don't
hearings,
know, I mean, I
public
don't know.
hearings don't necessarily have open-ended public comment. We've all been to hearings down in Columbus, they don't have open-ended public
They
comment,
have public comment.
sometimes.
Well, isn't, I think the definition of, I mean, I hate to be an English major jerk, but a hearing is a hearing. You are hearing somebody, if it's public, you're hearing the public. Is that not right? Hearing, it says it right in the title.
Well, I'm afraid that could be interpreted like the public is hearing this committee discuss this kind of a thing, so.
I don't know. I mean, it'd be nice to have a legal definition of public hearing.
Well, I think Linda was
I
the one.
don't know if there are other places in the charter that contemplate public hearings on anything.
There are not.
This is the only one?
They use that exact phrase in public hearings.
Well, the language as it stands contains Linda suggested changing of may to must, otherwise I don't think it's changed any, so.
I mean, just, I put the committee of
Right,
council
committee
down
of council,
here,
right.
but there's nothing else.
Yeah. So was there a motion on the floor?
Harriet, if you want Shell, I don't care.
You know,
I don't care,
Michelle is-
But I don't think it makes a difference, but I don't really care.
Well, that's the
If that
same.
would make you happier, you can make it Shell.
Yeah, let's make it shall. I think must is.
Jonathan, did you hear that?
I did,
Shall instead of must.
Replace must.
So then the only change would be clarifying committee of council, Jonathan's amendment.
Now, do we wanna say, provide for public meetings, comma, with opportunity for public counsel instead of saying public hearings, just to resolve that question?
we could also say public input.
You don't say input, that's not precise enough, I don't think.
Inputs? That was a joke.
You could say, provide for public meetings, comma, with opportunity for public comment, comma, on the proposed legislation. So we're not referring to hearings.
Alright, you get rid of hearings
Change hearing to meetings
and provide,
for public meetings.
Did you look it up, Stephanie?
is that correct?
Oh, there's a lot of them. What? Oh, what a public.
Shall provide for public meetings with opportunity for public comments, plural, on the proposed legislation,
Yeah, that comma could come out of the.
please.
And I think the comma could.
This comma?
Yes.
It's not parenthesizing it?
No, leave the two commas, we want two commas.
On the proposed legislation is.
I have no idea what,
You want a comma after
Comma?
meetings and after comments,
yeah, because it's,
please. So let me restate my motion.
Just say that.
All right, so my motion is city council or the council committee shall have public meetings, comma, with opportunity for public comments, comma, on the proposed legislation, period. That's my motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Can I call
Further
for the
discussion?
question? We've done a lot of discussion.
All those in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed?
Okay, so nobody pick up any stones, okay?
Yeah,
I'd like to make a simple motion,
yeah,
one more motion that relates to this issue here.
okay.
And it relates, the motion is that, and you can all refuse it if you want, it'll be there in the South Euclid charter, it has a one sentence, the mayor may not veto a citizen's initiative or something of that nature. So it prohibits the mayor, takes the power of the mayor's veto away from what has been passed by the voters because of a citizen's initiative.
What
So in
section?
other words, if council approves it, the mayor can't veto it.
No, sorry, I'm sorry. The idea would be that if it goes, well, actually, I don't know, now that you mention it, if it's a citizen.
That's a good question.
It's a good question. It's, yeah, I have to see South Euclid's charter.
Well, I have it right here.
You have it right there, okay.
Well,
It's only one sentence, so it really doesn't,
it seems like what the mayor shouldn't be able to veto is if the citizens
Lee,
vote
am I
for it.
looking at this right?
Well, it seems, that's why, but there's nothing, in Cleveland Heights,
Let me search.
if I may, so in Cleveland Heights, there is a provision, council may not repeal or amend to destroy the effectiveness of this initiative within 2 years after it takes effect, which is I think it's a good
Well,
idea.
there's no mayor veto.
There is,
Sure.
it talks
Oh, it's
about,
not called a veto?
no, it talks
Got it.
about, it's in the section about line items, so it allows the line items.
Okay, so the language in South Euclid says, no ordinance or resolution proposed by initiative petition and approved by a majority of the electors voting upon the measure shall be subject to any veto of the mayor.
So once it's been voted on, he can.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
If the initiative has come from the citizens,
This?
passed by the voters,
I think
it
that
can't be
Not be necessary to say.
Yeah, that's for
because it is
appropriations ordinances,
I know, but disapproval, like there's no veto language.
I'll have to check if it's in the
Okay.
ordinances.
It's a good idea, but it might be something to put a pin in, cause veto doesn't come up in regards to something the mayor has explicitly. So if it's something we want to do, the language would have to be very charter specific. Follow me? I feel like I'm not talking in sentences.
Still,
Ordinances, I think the general rule, Lee, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the general rule is that if something is passed by council, it goes to the mayor, and the mayor can approve it or disapprove it. And in the case of ordinances from like budget, money kind of stuff, he's got a line item,
yeah, I think that's right.
but not for other things.
Yeah,
So
no,
if
yeah.
council, if an initiative petition comes to council and council approves an initiative petition, can the mayor veto it? Council's already approving it by 5 votes, so
He doesn't have legislative authority in any
Well,
capacity.
Well, it says up here that he can.
It kinda does.
Here it says he can. Notwithstanding
it says every ordinance or resolution of council, and council, how would council approve an initiative? Wouldn't they have to pass an ordinance or a resolution?
Right, yeah.
Considering it's 10 to 8, I
Well,
think we need further research on this to see, do we feel it's necessary to include mayor can't veto this?
Well,
And is that
where's the language that says
Is that consistent with?
I have no idea.
The disapproval of the mayor, was this not?
Can't find it. No, that was just a disapproval of mayor.
Well, disapproval is the same thing. Where was
It's
it?
about-
4.5?
Yeah,
Yeah. It shall take effect notwithstanding the disapproval of the mayor. It's in there.
Well, that's my point. The mayor has a general right of veto, but in the case of a charter amendment, if somebody brings an initiative petition, we're talking about initiative petition. Somebody brings in an initiative petition, they've got all their signatures, it goes to council. Council has their hearing, council approves it by 5 votes, they have to have a 5-vote margin to approve it, right? Then the mayor could veto it, But if the,
But then council can.
No.
See a couple lines up here. on what the board
This
wants.
paragraph is
if upon such reconsideration, the ordinance is approved by the votes of 5 or more members of council, it takes effect. So the council can override a veto with the same 5
Yeah.
votes.
That's exactly what it says.
So there wouldn't be much point in the mayor vetoing it because he's pretty likely to be overridden, but I suppose he still could. He might feel strongly, the mayor might feel strongly about it.
But isn't what, I believe what South Euclid is referring to is not something that council has been favorable toward, it's something that council rejected, has gone to the voters, been passed by the voters. And then when it's been passed by the voters, there's a
Well,
provision that
it's,
says.
The whole notion of
it doesn't
this
matter whether
citizen
it was
initiative-
approved by council or not, it just says no ordinance or resolution proposed by initiative petition that's passed by the voters can't be vetoed by the mayor.
That seems unnecessary
we-
because the
Oh, I-
virtue of a citizen initiative petition is that the citizens are making law. Nobody else should, once they've passed it, it needs to go without saying that the mayor can't
No,
veto it.
I thought you were talking about before it gets to the voter.
South
No,
Euclid.
no, no, I'm
You're talking
saying
about after?
saying that the whole process is finished, the
Oh.
voters have voted on it, they
Okay.
said we want
No mayor
this.
should be able.
And then it says, as South Euclid is just saying, the mayor
But
does
does the
not have the
council
right to
take
veto.
action when the voters make?
It's not counted, I don't think it would require.
Council's
that
done
would
at
be-
that point.
I don't think the mayor has any veto power on that, there's
I
no
don't
point
think
in
that-
prohibiting a veto
No,
if the bill doesn't pass.
Yeah, I don't think the mayor does either.
No, I'm saying once the voters do something, there's no action taken by anyone, right?
Right.
It just is.
Yeah, that's what an initiative petition is all about.
Alright, so if y'all think it's not necessary, then we just go on.
All right, let's go on. 7 minutes.
Linda, did your motion include changing public hearings to public meetings?
It certainly did.
Oh, did we vote on
Two
it?
commas,
We voted on it, didn't we?
yes,
No.
we did. And it got all
Really?
yeses.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Sure, play the report.
This is why we have recordings
Yep.
in minutes. Alright, so did we cover all of the points in your thing in here?
I did, I believe so.
Alright, so
Drafting of status
So
of drafting of
folks-
segments for report.
you know, at our last meeting, we got through our whole agenda.
We had 5 hours
Thought
too.
maybe we were gonna repeat that
Yeah, 5 hours
feat.
is a lot less than, a lot more than.
I know. Now I lost my notes, I had, alright.
The beauty of these 5-hour meetings is so sick and tired of everything, you just pass things.
I don't think
loved
that's
it.
true.
I loved it.
Okay, okay.
I
People
don't
bring
think that's
food and we have
Alright.
conversation.
So, Lee sent out, you sent your email out about canvassing?
Yes.
Lee? I wanna say, I think we should just leave in the references to canvassing the couple times it appears and just not worry about it, I think it's okay.
Yeah, I agree.
That's my motion.
Second,
Does anybody have any discussion?
Why would we do that if we're trying to simplify languages? Like,
Because it has,
real meaning.
it has a real meaning in
Okay.
the legislation and, you know, it's a word. It's like emergency legislation, you know, it has a meaning.
it has real definition.
Well, it seems to me though, the
Thing.
places we ran across it, we said, what's this doing here? What does this mean in this context kind of thing? And we couldn't come up with what it actually means. I don't wanna start a conversation because it's 5 to 8 now. I'm
Well,
just-
we can hold this till the next meeting, cause you have to think about
Well,
if
we
people
have
are
to
ready
think about it?
vote.
Do we have to think about it? Cause Lee.
Well, if somebody wants to think about it,
Well, I didn't understand Lee's email.
okay, well, let's hold it to the next meeting, I don't wanna rush it, that's not fair to anybody. Okay, so, let's see, what have we got here, Graham, do you have a list?
Yes, so first, there's an error in the agenda, item 11, the next meeting is May 4th from 2 to 4 p.m.
Oh, no,
So just to make a note of that.
Oh.
So then we're gonna hopefully have the ranked choice voting ordinance for the next meeting. We are gonna have the consolidated draft of Guy's finance proposal with all the proper edits. I will draft report language, probably not by next meeting, for land acknowledgement. Lee is going to investigate the Lee Road Library in person, also not necessarily by next meeting. And we've also tasked Lee with some other things, which I don't know exactly. What other things?
Notes.
Lee knows what he has to do. He's got some action items. And I think that's all I got. Anyone else have any other action items? Things there's flyers to be distributed. We didn't really talk about that, but you guys know about that.
Okay, thank you all very much. I think we.
Motion to adjourn.
Not even
All right, so Jonathan made the motion. Drew, did you second that?
I did, but Greg, then if he wishes.
Any discussion?
Not at all.
So are we gonna pick up at
We're gonna pick up at Candace.
I-3?
Yep. Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.